Welcome to this panel or this conversation interview on the topic of AI and leadership from an HR perspective. I am really pleased and happy to have Jessica Miller-Merrell with me today. She's the CEO and founder of Workology and runs a pretty big and an amazing HR community. Jessica, over to you. I'd love to hear from you a little bit of what are some of the hot topics right now in your community of HR leaders who are navigating this transition and supporting their employees with the integration of artificial intelligence.
Of course. And thank you, Ramona, for having me here. I'm excited to talk about the conversation around AI because I feel like it's everywhere we turn on the news, on podcasts, but nobody is necessarily thinking about it in terms of human resources because it's just not a point of conversation a lot of times with the media. I think a lot of HR leaders are thinking about how the workplace is changing and the jobs are going to be changing. Frankly, there's a lot of uncertainty around what it is going to be doing because we're really just in the beginning stages of applications and the use case of AI. So many leaders, especially in the HR space, are just getting familiar with AI. Maybe it's something that they haven't heard about before. I feel like ChatGPT really brought AI mainstream, in a sense, into regular, everyday conversations. Executives are using ChatGPT, HR leaders, employees, students. My 15-year-old daughter uses ChatGPT in her everyday studies, and it is brought up a lot of conversations around ethics and use case and adoption and how it's going to impact the employees, not just now, but in the future. In terms of use case and questions and concerns about AI right now, I think it's more of an education opportunity in the space. How can this be applied, or is it already being used in my existing tech? And what HR leaders are finding is yes. When we talk to technology companies in the human resources space, they're already leveraging machine learning or some form of artificial intelligence. They just haven't talked about it maybe in the way that it is being utilized or how it's being refined or who's writing this code and what is the ethics behind the application. And if something is found that maybe isn't working, how do they refine these technologies to make them better, just utilized more fully and without bias in the workplace. Mm-hmm. If we look at the government and particularly the U.S. government, areas of government, including the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, are really taking a look, and the Department of Labor are really taking a look at how artificial intelligence is being applied and utilized and starting to put more guidance around how it can and should be used. There is new law coming. There's guidance by the White House right now on how it can be utilized, but we're seeing new laws being introduced in New York and other states that are specific to artificial intelligence use in different parts of the workplace, normally surrounding around screening and kind of the application and matching process. But there are a whole host of other ways that AI can be used and are being used specifically in the human resources side of things.
Mm-hmm. Which actually brings up an interesting point, right? So when we talk about the AI has been included in the tech stack at some level, but now through Gen AI and sort of the rollout of more and more tools that employees have access to, it now becomes an every employee conversation, or every employee needs to be, thinking about it, considering it on a strategic level, but also on a very tactical level. So when we talk about people leadership, from the aspect of interviewing to onboarding to performance coaching or offboarding, what are some of the things where you notice, that intersection of this is where hiring managers and people leaders need to really pay attention to because it's impacting the process or the people that they're seeing or how they go about it?
Let's start at the beginning of the hiring process first. If you think about maybe sourcing or matching software, so tools and technologies that are utilizing artificial intelligence to go out and look for just actions or activities that notify AI through AI that maybe an employee is looking for work. So updating your LinkedIn profile, or maybe updating an image, or just different activities that job seekers normally do before they actively go out on the market. There are technologies in the recruiting process that send to a recruiter or talent acquisition leader, hey, this person is exhibiting behaviors that they might be looking. So then those recruiters, their job is to go out and outreach and engage those candidates. And engineers, this drives them crazy in the tech space because recruiters are all up in their business. But when you make changes like that, the technology exists that says, hey, this person is probably looking. Here are the best way to get in touch with them: email, text message, LinkedIn, Reddit, wherever. That is one use, and something that I don't think a lot of people think about it being applied. And further on into the hiring process, there's a lot of matching technology that exists within the application itself. So when you upload your resume, put in your job posting, your job description of what you're looking for, the AI will match for you, for the hiring manager, who would be a best fit. So the algorithm does its thing, says this person is a great customer service manager. They're 85%, qualified for the role based on the information that they've shared. If the information that you put in for the specifics of the job in the conversation between recruiter and hiring manager doesn't mesh with what the actual job is, the type of candidates that you as a hiring manager are going to receive are not high quality, or they don't meet your specifics, which is why it's so important for the hiring manager, our leaders, to talk to the recruiters beyond the job description, the job posting, and say, these are the most important skills. Because as a recruiter, I want to make sure that I'm serving up to the hiring manager the right people. But if we're not on the same page, the AI isn't doing the job to match. And the reason that we have AI is because you might have 2,000 applications within 24 to 48 hours right now for a single position, depending upon what you do. It is not realistic for the hiring manager to do 25 interviews. It's also not realistic for me to do 75 interviews if I know that there's a 1-in-3 ratio before I send someone over to you. I want to send you the best 5 to 7 people to review in the first round. AI helps narrow down the field. Then hopefully I have some phone conversations or video interviews, things like that, before I send those over to you. Further on into the kind of employee life cycle, it might be technology inside of Slack or other communication tools that is going to tell maybe hiring managers or HR leaders that certain conversations are positive or negative, or it might bubble up maybe certain issues or trends that the artificial intelligence is seeing to let me as an HR manager know that maybe there is some potential employee engagement concerns, or there could be higher turnover coming because certain words or tone or information is being shared that might signify those kind of things. There is a whole host of different ways. For leaders and managers, I think another way that AI is being utilized is in maybe coaching conversations with employees. It can help look at the data in terms of your team, what they're sharing, their engagement levels, maybe the last 5 or 7 performance reviews, or maybe conversations that you've had with them about their performance. AI can make recommendations for you as a manager leader of the types of things that they might need or want, future positions that they might move into. So you can start to have upskilling and reskilling or performance conversations around those kind of things. These are all things we should have been doing as managers and leaders. But now we have access to more information and more data. So hopefully we can see beyond our own biases and maybe just our little tunnel of leading our individual teams, where it is moving us into more strategic conversations to keep those people, to retain them, because specialized positions, particularly in the tech space and finance and other areas, they are very expensive to rehire and train. So it's so much better to keep those people and move them into other roles within our organization. And that really starts with the managers, leaders. Those frontline conversations are what keep those people happy and hopefully sticking around our company.
Right, so it turns it into a way more proactive approach because you get those early leading signals, which is interesting. As I'm listening to you talk about this, I also realize that HR with so much access, hopefully access to data and leverage of tools, will become more and more ingrained in the day-to-day and be able to add value through the entire employee cycle as a result of that, which is really great to see.
Hopefully, and really, it starts with the organization and really how they're going to utilize the technology and all these different data points. One of my favorite recent podcast interviews was with the head of data science for human resources at Johnson & Johnson. They have a team of data scientists that are just focused on pulling in all that HR data to help make those informed decisions. Managers have complete access to all the data points, which I love. They're completely transparent. But Johnson & Johnson has set forth some standards around how they use in terms of data gathering, how they leverage the AI, and then additional training for managers and leaders so that everyone's on the same page and that you can understand how one might use this information. AI has been around for a really long time. It has been baked in our technologies. I just don't think it has the communication or the education has been out into the mainstream like it is now. And now as business leaders, we're asking more questions about how this information is gathered, how insights and information is coming to the surface. I want to know as a manager where these recommendations are coming from. And if something doesn't sit right, where do I go to report maybe inaccuracies or problems with this information that I'm being served up, so that the algorithm with the tech companies that we're working with can be modified and refined so that the matching is more in alignment. It's kind of like your Netflix. Sometimes it's not good. The recommendations are not great. You end up with some TV shows or movie recommendations in the early days that weren't your favorites, but that artificial intelligence algorithm has been refined over and over and over again. Feedback has been given so that now it's pretty on point. You open up and you're like, I want to watch a new movie. What one do you recommend? Based on past history and of other users and viewers and people like me, it's serving up some pretty accurate results. But that took time and a lot of refinement and checks and balances to be able to serve something like that up. This at a basic level, how matching software and recommendations kind of work with AI.
Which also highlights that when we use very generic job descriptions or we use very generic ways of performance reviews or values, we don't really hone in on our cultural values or our expectations, then we actually train those models in a very generic way, which then causes friction or maybe not even friction, but just a less optimal outcome down the value chain from the hiring process into the performance or the review process and the promotion process.
Absolutely.
As well.
Another thing I want just to kind of bring your attention when we think about artificial intelligence, and this is one of my favorite new ways that it's being utilized in human resources, is that there are different tools that are analyzing our conversations, maybe voice conversations. So they're recording maybe our conversation here or in a meeting or in an interview, and it's trying to uncover maybe suggestions or recommendations how we maybe as a hiring manager can better connect with our candidate. Or it might trigger information about if I am in conversation, how I can keep this person better engaged, or when they start to fall off based on words and phrases that they use, where it might demonstrate some disengagement or not interested in my conversation, talking about the organization. Lastly, it also looks at our unconscious biases. So one of the audio technologies that I really love that evaluates, we'll take a look at how you talk to female versus males or different other characteristics to help ensure that we are providing an equitable place to work that is fair and has belonging and encourages like diversity. And sometimes as managers and leaders, we don't know the things that we don't know, right? So this tool is designed to help bring some just information and data to say, hey, based on your last 15 conversations with maybe employees, we've noticed that you talk more about performance and are more on the negative side with women than versus men. which as a manager who hopefully is focused on improving their own leadership skills and abilities, upskilling themselves, will take that information and see it as an opportunity to improve, not an attack on their current performance. So these tools are coming out there, and they're going to be part of your conversations with your manager. And HR will be also leading the implementation of these said things. So I think it's really important for leaders to be open and maybe explore some different ways that these technologies are being utilized so that they can be prepared to receive maybe feedback that they are completely unaware of. It doesn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when you're focused on like a continuous improvement environment or culture in your company.
Right. And with so I'm sort of piggybacking off of that with managers being specifically exposed to some of these tools, and hopefully with a mindset of, yeah, let me try it and experiment it, and it will be an iteration. It won't be perfect from the beginning, but we'll see, okay, what is coming back that's useful, what might not be so useful, and then how can we broadly roll this out. But the ones who will engage and will be open to it in the beginning have this sort of first mover advantage, which also brings up that question of how will the organizational power structure, even the hierarchy in an organization, potentially change. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, because when we talk about AI, one of the key sort of benefits of it is that it learns fast, and things that have taken employees years to learn and build up expertise can now be automated and become accessible to basically anyone and everyone in the company. And so the value add of my 20 years of experience all of a sudden starts to actually diminish. And what does that do in terms of a workplace structure?
I think we're still trying to figure this particular area out, right? Change can be scary for a lot of people. And this is ushering in change at a much faster pace than we have seen in the past. And the fact that maybe somebody's 25 years of coding experience could be not diminished, but just evolve or change because I can utilize AI technologies like ChatGPT and others to ask questions, to test or refine code and troubleshoot problems, to make hopefully that code better, is going to require us as leaders and employees to really think about our existing skill sets and reevaluate where our strengths are and different areas that we can further expand. AI is not going to take over our jobs. I believe that wholeheartedly. However, it is going to it's going to take over some of our tasks, particularly those that are administrative or can be repeatable and automated, so that we can elevate ourselves to focus on more strategic activities. So if your job is more administrative, you are more likely to be at risk of having more of your daily activities replaced. Now, you have a choice as a leader, as an individual, to say that could be a good thing because it could free up my time to do other activities, or it's seen as a negative thing. I'm going to take this as an opportunity for me to educate myself on maybe a new skill or something that AI doesn't yet do, or I don't see it doing in the future. And there are so many great places to get access to learning or information to get those new skills. But it also gives you an opportunity to learn about AI. And there's so many great programs or training programs that are no cost, low cost through a lot of the universities, including Stanford and Harvard and other places, that you can take advantage of to learn about how to use AI and maybe turn the fact that your job is a little bit more administrative than others into an asset, because you can lead the charge to say, I've thought a lot about my job. I've done all this research and work in AI. Here are the 7 ways that I think I can oversee the implementation of this AI technology and become a project manager of it, right? And now suddenly you're an expert in the area of AI in your department or in the organization. And now you have a new skill that no one else has, because now you're the artificial intelligence expert in your department or organization. That's how I'm trying to look at things. So if you're somebody who's a lifelong learner, loves information, is always willing to go out there and search for new things, this is a great time for you. This is a great time for you to get over there and get excited and just open yourself up to a completely different world. If you're someone who sees the glass always half empty, wants to focus on the negative, this could be a time for you that is going to be particularly challenging. But what's most important is that you are in control of how you react to these changes and the decisions that you make in terms of how you learn and grow and continue to support in your role right now or in your role in the future. That's how I'm trying to encourage HR leaders to look at things too, because their roles are dramatically changing. We have all this AI coming in, so they can either take the initiative and become the expert or sit back and wait for somebody else to do that. And our jobs in HR, a lot of it can be automated, not completely, but we can either lead those conversations or be left behind.
Right. Yeah, we can't really stop it. But I do hear this from clients or in conversations, more so than I initially thought I would hear it, which is really that pointing out the fear aspect and almost resisting to automate, which makes sense, resisting to automate my own job. Why would I do that? Why would I demonstrate that I could do this in a fraction of the time, provide the same value to the organization? That is, career suicide. But actually, to really turn that around and say, hold on, I am going to showcase what I could do, and I become more valuable as a result of that, because then I can replicate this in other areas. But I think for leaders particularly, well, we may think about it this way, but so is everyone else, or so a lot of other people in the organization. And I can imagine even HR sort of if they are the leading or the carriers of some of these initiatives, to address the fears that are real about this and to change people's mindsets, which we know it's not the easiest thing to do. What are some suggestions, or what have you found works well for HR to navigate a transition like this and address the hurdles and the internal barriers that employees have?
HR, any leader that is involved in the implementation of new processes needs to be familiar with change management philosophies. So understanding the cycle of change and people's acceptance to those things, because there's kind of a method to the madness, right? It's completely natural and normal to resist change. That is a human quality, okay? We have to plan and prepare and in terms of our change implementation process for these things. And that means giving people space after we communicate about the change, and then be prepared with training, information, and resources to help them move forward with the change, right? And then be prepared for when we launch the change, there will be resistance again, because it's hard. It isn't easy. It might take more time. But letting people know that there's resources and information that exists and the benefit maybe that they might have. Because right now people are seeing the negative, which is, I'm going to lose my job. This is also what the media is telling everybody. I'm going to lose my job because of this artificial intelligence technology. If we can showcase examples of and case studies of when this result occurred, which we don't often see in the news. I'm trying to remember, there's an example most recently in the media where this company that's getting ready to go pre-IPO, they were saying that they cut 40% of their jobs and it was all AI related. I think a lot of that is hype, and it is untested. It is unusual to do any of those things. And now they're all in the media. So they're getting ready to go in their blackout period as they ramp up to the IPO stage. So they need to get all the media that they can. So it was a good PR move on them, because AI is hot right now. But that is highly unusual for these things. What's important is just all the things that we already do as good managers: communication, processes and systems, training and development, building relationships with our employees, and then working with our leaders to talk through any hurdles or objections or resistance that we might have happening. I would encourage you as a leader to think about different ways that we can leverage our people, different ways that you can maybe give your team additional responsibilities, but thinking about it from a business acumen standpoint. How can what this new role that I'm moving into or utilizing this AI, like free up my time to drive more revenue or productivity in the business? These are the kind of things that are going to safeguard your job. If we focus on how we can drive more money and revenue into the organization or improve maybe the customer experience, which leads to more opportunities in different markets, they're going to keep individuals in the organization. You're crazy if you don't. You won't be around in business very long. You look for opportunities in the market. And I think this time and space, when AI does automate some of our jobs, it is going to provide us an opportunity to be more creative, to be more focused, to be more strategic. We just need to focus on the examples and case studies of how that can happen when we communicate those to our team members. My daughter's a swimmer, so I think a lot in swimming, like examples. And when she first started swimming, it took time, right? It wasn't fun, but you have to be consistent and keep at it. As she, over time, continued to swim, her time started to drop, right? You could see her stroke was improving. What happens is, in swimmers, you swim multiple strokes. Sometimes your freestyle stroke is the best. You're just amazing at it. And then 6 months, a year later, suddenly your backstroke is the best. Change is like that. It ebbs and flows. The key is to stay positive, stay focused, and then keep going out there and learning and trying. And if we get overwhelmed or stressed, that's when things start to go sideways, right? We kind of get into our own head. Artificial intelligence and through change management is just like that. And the best way to keep our people so they're in the right frame of mind starts with communication and us as leaders demonstrating the way we want our people to be. And they can follow us by mirroring those behaviors, those actions, those feelings, because we're in a good headspace to be able to handle this dramatic change.
Yeah, I love how you called out stories, and I think highlighting examples of where someone was in a role that was then automated and was able to add and actually probably really grow in their role or become more valuable to the organization because of the way that they looked at the change and engaged with it. Also, the point here that you're making with change management and keeping people in the loop, I think there's a huge opportunity for leaders to get the conversation going early on. And whatever my attitude is as a leader towards change or towards new technology, and if HR is rolling something out that I might feel like, this is, I don't know, I feel a little, they're listening to my conversation, I don't know how I should feel about this, and I start to resent it or reject it, the chances that my team will stop engaging with it is way higher. And so I'm actually holding them back in addition to holding myself back. And I think this is part of acknowledging our responsibility of how do I really want to show up and manage my own response and my own fears to it, to not also negatively influence the rest of the team, even though we might need to acknowledge, yes, this is hard and we might not like it. We might have to have more questions that we have to get through.
Yeah, we have huge influence on our people, and we set the tone for everything that happens. So if we have preconceived ideas, opinions about artificial intelligence, it's definitely going to seep in, and it welcomes that behavior. So I would just encourage you to pick up a book, listen to a podcast, get informed, and maybe demo some tools and technologies. Just see. I mean, there's so many great ways, and there's so many really cool free demos of tools that you can utilize. ChatGPT is just one example of something that's in the B2B space, but also the business to customer space. There's really cool AI PowerPoint building technology that might make your job easier or your team's job easier. My team and I just today were talking about different ways to leverage artificial intelligence, including for like making a cloning of my likeness that could create a video and be me to help support people using my existing database of information and resources in my training to provide and serve up information. Audio training. I mean, there's a whole host of like different things that we can utilize. It's just really getting out there and experimenting, thinking a little creatively, and then making time to educate yourself so that when something rolls out, you're already familiar with the language and the information, so you can really position yourself as a leader in your organization for the change. And as an HR person, I love those kind of people. If I'm the leader of the change, right? Like I want those individuals in my organization that I feel like are going to be my allies for a rollout of something like this. So this is a great way to really position yourself to move up in the organization or move into some different roles to further make yourself even more valuable.
Yeah, and influential.
Absolutely.
So speaking of education, and as we wrap up, tell us a little bit about Workology and upcoming events that might be interesting to the audience.
Workology is a destination for human resources, recruiting professionals and leaders. I focus mostly on training for HR and recruiting leaders. And honestly, if you're interested in moving into an HR role, or a recruiting role, or learning more about like leadership training, or kind of having that HR mindset, it's a great place to be able to check out and see what we have available. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what HR does and doesn't do. And so a lot of my work is, outside of educating HR leaders and providing them training and resources, is to do things like this, where I connect with managers, leaders, employees who might have an opinion or have had an experience with HR or something that HR was involved in. And I don't know, just trying to put their minds at ease. We are really trying to better the organization and support the business. Like you, we have our own jobs and responsibilities and targets and goals that we have to meet. So maybe sit down with your HR person, or head on over to the Workology website and check a look at some resources and just ask some questions with your HR leader, recruiting leader, about what their day is like and the kinds of things that they do. It'll start to really build, I think, hopefully a great relationship that you'll learn a few things and they can too.
And one thing that I find really useful speaking with leaders and teams about generative AI and AI is the dialogue, and actually learning about use cases from each other, from like, oh, I never thought about that, but you're right, I should test this out. Or have you seen about how this tool works and how this integrates with the tools that we already have, and having a community where you can post those questions, get informed, but also stay in the loop of different use cases. And that is insight that when you bring that back to your organization, allows you to speak so much more informed about the topic. And I know that Workology does that, so we'll definitely link it there in the caption. And if you are in the HR space and you want to stay ahead with AI and the intersection of HR with that, head on over to Workology and check it out. Jessica, thank you so much for being on this panel. You clearly know what's going on and where people's minds are at with the integration of AI in HR. So appreciate you making the time to chat today.
I love this topic. It's always changing and evolving. So it's a lot of fun to see what happens next, especially when I have a 15-year-old daughter that I'm thinking about what it's going to be like for her when she graduates and goes off into the working world.
Same here. Yeah. Thank you so much.